Hello and welcome to a numbers edition of Apple a Day. This episode continues my series on logical functions within Apple numbers. Today I'll be covering these three functions: Isnumber, ISEVEN, and ISODD. These are very basic functions which all return either true or false. The first one, Isnumber, checks the specified value or cell to determine if it's a number. This can be useful if you want to make sure that a value is indeed numeric before performing an operation. Typically, you would use this within an if function. I covered the if function in a previous episode, and here's the link to that video. I've also included it in the description. So let's dive into Isnumber. So here I've got a numbers document already open. The first column contains data of various types. The column type is indicated here. So let's try out the Isnumber function. In the first row, I'll select the cell and type in the equal sign to bring up the formula editor. Then I'll type in Isnumber and press return. This function takes a single parameter, and that's a value or the cell to check to see if it is indeed numeric. If the value is numeric, then this function returns true. Otherwise, it'll return false. So for the first test, I'm going to select the blank cell under the sample data column and press return. It displays false since a blank cell is not a number. I'm now going to copy this formula and paste it into the cells below one at a time. The next row should also return false since this is text is clearly not a number. And it does. Moving on, we should get our first true value for 0, and we did. And again for the value of pi. And one more time for the value of 1,270,000,000. And that number should have significance to any Back to the Future fans. Next, we should get a value of false for this date, and we do. Now, what about the checkboxes? I suppose it depends on how these values are stored. Let's find out. Well, it looks like they are definitely not stored as numbers. Both checked and unchecked return false. Moving on to the star rating, this returns true because the actual value is still numeric, 0 through 5. And the same goes for the slider. This is storing a numeric value. The pop-up menu, however, returns false because these are all stored as text values. Okay, so now that you can see what Isnumber returns based on the different data types, so what? What value does this function have? Well, when used in conjunction with an if function, you can perform operations on a cell first by testing if that value is numeric. By adding this check, you never have to worry about applying operations on a non-numeric value. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say I wanted to show 10% of the value of this column. I'll title the new column as 10%. And I'll add a new formula, typing in the equal sign, and then I'll type in if and press return. The first parameter is the value to check, so I want to test if this cell is numeric before I do anything else. So I'm going to type in Isnumber and press return again. And then I'll select the cell to check and then press tab. And here we want to perform an operation if this first part of the function is true. I want to divide this value by 10. So I'll select the same cell and type in the / to divide, and then the number 10 to divide by 10. I'll press tab to go to the if false parameter, and here I want to type in just a hyphen in quotes. So I'll type in shift quote because I need double quotes, and then hyphen, and then close the quotes with a shift quote again. So this will display a dash if the value is not numeric. If I press return, a dash is displayed because this value is clearly not numeric. I'll copy and paste this into all the cells underneath it. We should then see values for only those cells that are numeric, so only if the value under the numeric column shows true. And it looks like it works perfectly. We're only seeing the result showing 10% for the actual values here that are truly numbers. There are probably many other uses for when you would need to know if a cell is numeric versus some other data type, but I'll leave that up to you to discover. Okay, so the other two functions I want to go over are really simple. I'm going to add headings to the next two columns so we know which is which, odd and even. On the row containing the 0 value under the odd column, I'm going to type in the equal sign, and then ISODD and press return. Then select the 0 value and press return again. And beside it, I'll enter ISEVEN and select the same cell and press return. So 0 shows a false for the test if it's odd and true for the test if it's even. And that's correct. Now let's copy these two cells to the value for pi. So it returns true for odd and false for even. But a blue triangle is also displayed. If I click on it, we get a warning. It says that ISODD arguments must be integers, meaning that the value to check by ISODD must be a whole number. Now it still works without an error, so that means that numbers is ignoring the value to the right of the decimal and just going by the value on the left, which is a 3. And 3 is odd. So if I change the value on the left of the decimal to 4, the results should flip. And they do. 4 is false for odd and true for even. Moving on to the next value, this is very basic. It's just an even number, and these two functions for ISODD and ISEVEN reflect that. So what happens if we use these functions on a blank cell? I'll paste them into the first row, and it looks like it treats a blank cell like the value of 0. ISODD returns false, and ISEVEN returns true. Now what happens if we apply them to a text cell? Pasting them in, and we get errors. If I click on the triangle, it says that the function ISODD expects a number. Let's paste these into the rest of the cells. And it looks like we also get errors for the date type, and again for the pop-up menus, which are essentially text. The checkbox gives us a warning. It says that the formula is using a Boolean in place of a number. So what appears to be happening here is that numbers will assume the value of false in a checkbox is actually a 0, and that the checkbox value of true is actually a 1. So 0 returns false for ISODD and 1 returns true. And then, of course, the opposite for ISEVEN. But how do we address these errors? Well, we've already demonstrated the function ISNumber. Let's see if we can use that to fix this issue. First, I'm going to clear out these formulas and we're going to start again. So I'm going to type in the equal sign, and then if, and then return. And for the if expression, I'll type in ISNumber and press return and select the sample data value. And for if true, I'll type in the function ISODD and then press return and select the same cell again. Then press tab to go over to the if false expression and type in the dash within double quotes and press return. I'm going to do the exact same thing under the even column, except that instead of ISODD, I'll enter ISEVEN. So when that's done, I'll copy these two cells to the rest of the cells. And now we get a proper result for ISODD and ISEVEN in all of the cells. Note that the checkboxes no longer give us a value because they are technically not numbers. Before we bothered checking to see if they were numeric, numbers assumed they could be converted to a 1 or a 0. But adding the test for ISNumber does not allow for that. So that's pretty much it. If you were to ask me for a use case for ISEVEN and ISODD, I really couldn't think of a real-world example for when you would use this. So I'll just end this right here. This lesson is more about showing you what these functions actually do and how you might use them within an if function. The more important takeaway is the function ISNumber. In my next video, I'll be covering the error functions, and I'll show you how you could use the function IfError instead of ISNumber to avoid those pesky error triangles. Thanks for watching. My name is John Martins. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Everything you do helps this channel grow. I'll see you in the next episode of Apple a Day.